As you may know, during the regular season, we brought you 6 players that we talked about, 3 ups and 3 downs. But since it's the offseason, it is time to dig a little deeper. Last episode, we started our case study, giving you 6 sells for Dynasty players. So let's crack open the second edition of this case study and get right into it.
Let's do it.
So I guess I'll start it out, guys.
Go for it.
My first sell today is Kenyan Drake.
Okay.
One rule of thumb for me is not to hold on to running backs that don't have a contract for the upcoming year. Yes, there were some exceptions last year with 3 stud RBs in Kamara, Cook, and Mixon waiting on contracts. But Drake is not a top elite running back. He is an unrestricted free agent this year in 2021 and may or may not be back in Arizona. He is 27 years old, so signing a long-term deal may not be in the cards for him. Get it? Cards, Cardinals. The fact that his stats, almost 1,100 all-purpose yards and 10 touchdowns, yielded him running back 15 on the year, is a perfect jumping-off point to sell him to a league mate. You can try to get someone nice in return for him, like A.J. Dillon and a 2021 late second, to help your team build for the now and for the future. Yes, I know it sounds like I'm trying to sell my car on Facebook Marketplace when I'm talking about Kenyan Drake, but the point of the case study is to maximize your value on your assets while they still have value. There's an influx of free agent running backs this year, and Drake could wind up playing running back by committee, say in New England or the Jets by May. So not something I want to gamble with. So get him off your squad and save yourself the headache when the 2021 NFL market opens in March.
Oh, cheers to that, Chef.
Cheers. Corey?
I cheers too, man. And kind of banking off of that maximize value pick, I'm going to go with Christian McCaffrey here.
Whoa.
Oh, just take it easy, man.
So look, exactly. Let's just get right into it, You should only be selling Christian McCaffrey if you are not a contender. So this is like you're the bottom of the barrel team. And if you are that, you should not have one of the best dynasty assets on your team. Obviously, this is speaking a lot from roster construction, draft picks you might have. So if you can turn your team around from a pretender to a contender, don't sell them. But if you're just in the shithole, you're the Houston Texans, you have no draft picks, you might got to trade Watson. In this case, you got to trade McCaffrey. So selling McCaffrey is not easy, nor should you sell him just because you get some offers. So this is meaning you do not sell low because of his injuries, So maybe if you're able to snag multiple 2021 first-round picks and additional young talent, this will likely behoove you to make a deal to position that team for future success. So what I mean with young talent is kind of the proven young talent and kind of more so speaking into the wide receiver position. Trade for proven wide receivers and draft those rookie running backs. So aim for maybe a T. Higgins, DJ Moore, Chase Claypool, and any receiver of that nature, plus that additional draft capital. CMC is in his prime, and it's best fit for a championship contender. So remember, I am only selling if my team is not contending.
Makes sense to me, man.
I dig that. And you went with a former 10101 in CMC. And I'm my first sell is actually the receiver one this year, Devonta Adams. Yeah, there's a couple things that scare me with receivers. When they're at their peak value, ask the Michael Thomas owners of last season, and would they have rather gotten rid of him last year when they could have gotten that haul that you can probably get for a guy that had 18 touchdowns this year and was the wide receiver one. He averaged 25.6 points a game, which is more than Michael Thomas 23.4 last year in 2019. So Devonta Adams is at peak value. He's 28 years old. You want to get rid of him before that comes down and that touchdown regression happens. So similarly to Corey, like I'm doing this, especially if I'm not a contender. If I can win it this year, I might want that asset. But right now, he can probably yield you a couple of the guys. And Corey, you mentioned, if I can get T. Higgins, Deontay Johnson, DJ Shark, Laviska Shenault, guys that are going to be in prime situations where they can improve. Like Deontay Johnson went from 10.2 fantasy points to 14.8. So he's a perfect target for me to get rid of. I want 2 of those assets, make no mistake about it. And I might want some draft picks in return for Devonta Adams. That's probably what it is. And if you're going lateral, maybe buying low on a guy like Chris Godwin, who's still young and was the wide receiver one, that's something that you can do. And I would trade Devonta Adams now, especially if I'm in a rebuild situation.
Makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense going into a rebuild situation, and you have Devonta Adams as your stud wide receiver. You can get a haul for him right now.
Right. If you can get depth, get depth.
Well, I'm kind of going to flip the script on my next guy. He is not a 1 in any position, but he did wind up being a 2, and that's David Johnson. Now, this one is going to be a hard sell, mainly because he's 29 years old, and in Dynasty, that is a hard no to take on someone that old, especially at the running back position. But Johnson did finish as the RB21 in PPR formats, even with missing 4 full games due to injury. In his last 2 games of the season, he totaled 259 all-purpose yards and had 3 total touchdowns, and was running back 5 in that time frame. And that's exactly what you should push on the league mate you were trying to sell to him too. Most fantasy players go off of recency bias, that what you have done for me lately effect. It works. Not to mention he has only 1 year left on his contract in Houston. So if you're not contending this year and you have him on your roster, try to push him off to someone that is competing. Even if it's for a younger, lower tier running back like Darrell Henderson or Devin Singletary. The storm clouds are circling over Houston as a franchise, and I want no part of what's going on there. I am selling David Johnson and getting whatever I can for him. Corey?
Yeah, man, great points. And something I'm just realizing is maybe we kind of have a running back sell trend going, and maybe it's the offseason and it's time to evaluate running backs. So speaking on that, I am actually going to be selling Josh Jacobs. So Jacobs, he was the RB9 in PPR through the 16-week fantasy season. He added on 12 touchdowns, and he also managed 33 receptions. Now, if you guys can remember, before the season, he called 60, I think?
Yeah.
He called for 60. He got 55% of that, so that's definitely an uptick from, I believe, maybe it was about 20 or so last year in 2019.
It was 24, I think.
24? Thank you for doing my part.
Bro, you're trash, bro. Is them tears, bro? Come on, bro. You gotta get you together, boy.
So the RB9 finish is nice, but was it deceiving? So in 2020, he finished total of 210.4 points. Remember, that's the RB9. So let's take those points and put them in the last couple of years. 2019, that would have been the RB14. Same with 2018. And then 2017 and 2016 is the RB11. So RB14, 14, 11, and 11. So through these 2 seasons, he has actually yet to post an RB1 points per game season. It's very interesting. And then in 2020, let's look at his stats a little bit more. 13% of his games, he had over 100 yards rushing. 13% of his games, he had 4 or more receptions. His season high was 4. 0% of those games, he had over 50 yards receiving. 47% of his games came without a touchdown. 47% of games, he had less than 75 yards rushing.
Wow.
So noting on that 12 touchdowns, 75% of those came in just 4 games. If anyone is willing to pay RB1 price for Jacobs, you should definitely consider selling. Through 2 seasons, he's averaging 257.5 carries, 1,107.5 yards, and 26.5 receptions. He is young, and he has that solid role in that Raider offense, but it seems like we know what we have in Jacobs. So what I'm trying to say is, if anyone wants to overpay for him, then you should sell. Also, kind of like my point about selling CMC, you should sell if you are not a contender, but I just wanted to go a little bit more deeper here with Jacobs.
That was an awesome deep dive into Jacobs, and I didn't realize that 47%, man. That's
Juan owns a lot of Jacobs.
I do all over the place, and I'll probably be looking to move him this offseason. I like that. C-Dot, I like that. And you mentioned, that fringe RB1 territory, and that's where Mike Evans lives. and that's my sell. And he's another one that's going to be kind of a tough sell. He's a little bit inconsistent. He had 5 games this year where he didn't even break double-digit fantasy points. He compiled a lot of stats. He had some big games going towards the end of the season, and he actually averaged less points per game this year, 15.5, than he did last year, where he had 17.9 through the whole season. So right now, the recency bias that you talked about and what have you done for me lately, he's been on a heater the last couple of games. People are going to see him in the playoffs and see him do well. Godwin's going to leave and everyone's going to be hyping up vacated targets. He's only been in the top 10 twice in his career. He's been that iffy guy that you can't start every week. So what do you want in Dynasty, especially if you're in that situation where you're trying to rebuild? You want depth. Again, so I'm going to take a 27-year-old wide receiver coming off of one of his best seasons in the last few years, and vacated target, plays with Tom Brady. That like sell aspect is there, like that little vibrancy that you need to be able to move a guy. And again, I'm going to go for depth. And what I want is a bunch of wide receiver twos. Since 2015, only 4 guys have repeated to come back in the top 10 from 2015 to 16. From 16 to 17, it was 3. Then we saw a jump where 6 guys came back, but then there were only 3 guys that repeated from 2018 to 19. And last year there were 2. So only 2 guys are going to repeat and go back to be in top 10. So next year, what's the likelihood of Mike Evans breaking that top 10? Probably not. So get rid of him while you can, while he's a fringe wide receiver 1, and get the most value. And again, go after the guys that are going to be tied to Trevor Lawrence, like DJ Shark, Laviska Shenault. Get packages, get Colin Johnson, go get Deontay Johnson, James Washington. Get a couple of guys to make up for that roster spot, and they'll give you the same type of production that Mike Evans was able to give you.
That's nice, Juan.
Yeah.
I'm willing to sell Mike Evans.
Wide receiver 24 has been averaging 14.1 points a game the last 2 seasons. So Mike Evans is right around there. It's very close gap between wide receiver 10 and wide receiver 24. So if you can get your hands on 2 of those guys that are going to be wide receiver 24 and add depth to your team, especially with a guy that's injury prone, yeah, that's the move I'm making.
That's nice.
Nice, dude.
Well, that wraps up our
Great.
selling point on our case study. Next episode, we will be talking into some buys, which are very, very interesting topics. I love some dynasty buys. How about you guys?
Indeed.
Yes.
I'll buy that for $1.
I'd buy.
So I guess this is the part where we say goodbye, right?
Goodbye. Yes.
Thanks for tuning in to our case study. Hit that like and subscribe button for updates on everything fantasy intervention, and follow us on Twitter at @joinourcircle_, and check out fantasyintervention.com for all our news and articles. You can find me at @FF_chef on Twitter. I'm James Kriess.
I am Juan Carlos Pena. You can find me at FF Juan of a Kind and at @joinourcircle_.
Corey Spala, cdotFF. Like Chef said, check our website out, fantasyintervention.com. We just released a Superflex mock draft in January of 2021. So whenever you're seeing this, and whatever else we have.
Got a lot of stuff cooking.
Fire every day.
A lot of stuff cooking.